Today on Inquirer. Amid the maritime disputes, President Bongbong Marcos calls on countries to keep South China Sea a sea of peace. Instead of ranting before the media, PNP asks suspended Bucor Director General Gerald Bantag to submit evidence linking a convicted drug lord to the Percy Lapid slay case. Fuel price adjustment to take effect tomorrow. Gasoline and kerosene prices to increase. Diesel to roll back. And Gilas Pilipinas buckles down to beat Saudi Arabia. Good evening. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has raised the issue of the maritime dispute over the South China Sea at the 17th East Asia Summit. Denisa Fernandez fills us in with the details. Denisa?
The South China Sea can be a nexus of vibrant economic engagements and interactions if nations will work together to ensure that the disputed territory remains a sea of peace, security, stability, and prosperity. President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. said. The president made this call anew on Sunday in his speech at the 17th East Asia Summit, a regional forum of 18 countries. It was the second time throughout the course of the summit in Phnom Penh, Cambodia by the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN that Marcos raised the issue of the maritime dispute over the South China Sea. Marcos stressed that the Philippines considers maritime cooperation as a key priority in bilateral and multilateral cooperation and engagements, specifically in the South China Sea. He said, and we quote, "With the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea and international law as our basis, the South China Sea will be a nexus of vibrant economic engagements and interactions, not an epicenter of armed conflict or geopolitical maneuverings." End quote. Marcos first brought up the territorial conflict last Friday during the 25th ASEAN-China Summit, where he pushed for the early conclusion of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, as this would be an example of how states manage their differences. He had earlier lamented the slow progress in completing the Code of Conduct between ASEAN and Beijing. A day after, he pushed for the completion of the Code of Conduct. Amid the maritime dispute, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang said his country would work closely with nations in the regional bloc to ensure peace and stability on the basis of mutual respect for international law. In the meantime, the president said he is deciding whether or not to attend the World Economic Forum or WEF in Davos, Switzerland in January 2023, considering the several state visits he has committed to. In an interview with reporters before leaving Cambodia on Sunday, Marcos confirmed that WEF Executive Chairman Klaus Schwab sent him an invitation. Marcos, however, said that he may be traveling too much already since he would also be away early January for the state visit to China. Marcos also said that aside from China, he has accepted several state visits, including those from ASEAN countries, whose leaders he got the chance to meet during the recently concluded summit in Cambodia.
Thanks, Denisa. That's Denisa Fernandez. Mixed fuel price adjustment awaits motorists this Tuesday, November 15. Pump prices of gasoline will see an increase of 90 centavos per liter. Kerosene prices will rise by 1 peso and 35 centavos per liter. Meanwhile, the prices of diesel will be slashed by 30 centavos per liter. The Philippine National Police has asked suspended Bureau of Corrections Director General Gerald Bantag to submit evidence to back his claims, linking a convicted drug lord in the murder of radio man Percy Lapid instead of ranting before the media. This comes after Bantag surfaced in a television interview last Friday and linked Herman Agoho to the murder of Lapid. PNP spokesperson Colonel Jean Fajardo said today that Bantag must follow the legal process in communicating his allegations against Agoho. Both Bantag and the police said Agoho is allegedly involved in the 2004 killing of Batangas Regional Trial Court Judge Voltaire Rosales, who convicted and sentenced him for illegal drug trade in 1999. Fajardo reasons that investigators cannot just look into the drug lord's alleged involvement in Lapid's killing without the suspended Bucor official presenting proof before the Department of Justice. Following Bantag's claims, the DOJ maintained that all evidence so far collected by law enforcement agencies points to Bantag as among those involved in Lapid's assassination. Senate Minority Leader Coco Pimentel would ask for the removal of the confidential and intelligence funds of the Office of the President and Office of the Vice President at the proper time. During Monday's Senate plenary session on the 2023 national budget, Pimentel questioned the 500 million peso confidential fund under the 2.3 billion peso budget of the Office of Vice President Sara Duterte. Pimentel also asked if the OVP's confidential fund could be reallocated to finance the operations of other agencies, such as the Philippine Postal Corporation. As the chair of the Senate Finance Committee, 2023 national budget sponsor Senator Sonny Angara defended the OVP's budget and noted that it deserves the Senate's support. But Pimentel emphasized that per Congress' own definition of confidential funds, the Office of the Vice President is not entitled or should not be given a confidential funds. In last week's deliberations, Pimentel also questioned the intelligence fund of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s office.
Just as I manifested that I will move for the reduction in the, hindi lang reduction pala in the Office of the President, the deletion of the intelligence fund in the Office of the President, at the proper time, I will move for the deletion of the confidential funds for the Office of the Vice President.
No Filipino casualty was reported in the explosion that rattled Istanbul, Turkey, according to the Department of Foreign Affairs. In a statement, the DFA said the embassy and the consulate have not received any reports of Filipino casualties, as they expressed condolences to the families of those who lost their lives at the explosion in Istanbul yesterday. The DFA committed to continue monitoring the situation and developments. Meanwhile, Senate Majority Leader Joel Villanueva appealed to the DFA and Department of Migrant Workers to immediately respond to the incident to ensure the safety of Filipinos. The explosion that tore through a busy shopping street in Istanbul on Sunday killed 6 people and wounded dozens. There are about 3,000 Filipinos in Istanbul, according to the DFA. Gilas Pilipinas buckled down to beat Saudi Arabia in the 5th window of the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers. Gilas Pilipinas cranked things up in the middle quarters and then kept it together the rest of the way for a 76-63 victory over host Saudi Arabia. Gilas led by as much as 16 points, but Saudi Arabia proved to be a pesky at home, pulling in within 8 points with a little more than 2 minutes left in the game. But the Nationals kept it together, dooming the Saudis with a 2-6 record. Roger Pogoy and Dwight Ramos had 13 points each to lead the charge, with Kai Soto pouring in 11 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 blocks, ultimately helping the Philippines to a 5-3 win-loss record. Alamin naman natin ang mainit na balita sa mundo ng showbiz kasama si Ervin Santiago ng Bandera. Ervin?
Hi Neil at sa lahat ng mga kabandera natin all over the universe, ito na nga ang latest Bandera Chika. Tandang-tanda pa hanggang ngayon ng kapuso actress at TV host na si Carmina Villaruel ang artistang sumampal sa kanya ng bonggang-bongga. Nangyari nga ito nang gawin ni Carmina ang isang proyekto ilang taon na ngayon ang nakararaan. Inamin ng aktres na nagalit at napikon siya nang mangyari ang insidente dahil nga ito na ang pinakamalakas na sampal na naranasan niya sa ilang dekada niya sa showbiz. Ito ang ibinahagi ng aktres sa latest episode ng podcast na wala pa kaming title kasama ng mga kaibigan niyang sina Candy Pangilinan, Jelly at Janice de Belen. Kwento ng misis ni Soren Legaspi at host ng Sarap Diba, talagang nawindang siya sa nasabing eksena na until now ay parang ramdam na ramdam pa rin niya ang sakit sa kanyang mukha. Chika ni Carmina, talagang bumuelo pa ang kaeksena niya bago siya sinampal, kaya ang ending, nawala siya sa frame ng camera at nahulog pa sa sofa. Buti na lang daw at may sofa sa set dahil kung wala, tuluyan na siyang bumagsak sa sahig. Walang binanggit na pangalan si Carmina sa kanyang revelasyon pero hindi raw niya makakalimutan ang nanampal sa kanya. Anya pa, napikon talaga siya sa nangyari dahil bukod sa nasaktan na siya ay parang nagkatroma pa siya sa ginawa ng kaeksena. Buti na lang daw at meron pa rin siyang presence of mind habang kinukunan ang nasabing sampalan scene at itunuloy pa rin ang eksena para hindi na sila ma-take 2 o take 3 dahil baka hindi na siya makapagpigil. Sabi pa ni Carmina, hindi na niya ipinakat sa direktor ang eksena para matapos na kahit pa sobrang namanhid ang mukha niya. Nako, Mina, sino ba yan? Para masampal din. Charot lang. At yan ang Bandera Chika natin for today. Thanks, Neil.
Grabe naman yun, Irvin. And these are the stories you need to know today. I'm Neil Mercado. Follow INQUIRER.net on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and Reddit. For more stories, visit INQUIRER.net. Good evening.